Hi, everybody. How are you doing? This is Lee from Fresh Astrology. I'm going to put my website here because I'm going to refer you to it. If you're interested in getting the annual forecast for 2020 and a lot more content and even some basic astrology instruction, the opportunity for a free reading each month, then go to leesears.com and join the membership lounge. And there's just a lot more there, and I hope to see you there. All right. We are looking at Gemini for January 2020. And so hi, Gemini. What you probably know if you've been watching astrology for a little while, or what you should know if you're new to astrology, is there's a lot going on right now in the sign of Capricorn. So obviously that's not you, but it's still important to you. It on your chart, if I was going to do your chart, you have basically this circle, looks like a pizza. It's got 12 slices, and each slice of that pizza represents a certain part of your life. That's how we read a chart. And also each slice roughly lines up with a zodiac sign. So 12 zodiac signs, 12 slices of pizza. And the zodiac signs in your chart also kind of line up with these things called houses. These are areas of life. When I teach astrology, I use the concept of a play or a movie, and this is like the plot line. So the plot for you thickens in the area of Capricorn. So Capricorn represents in your chart this area called the 8th house. And the 8th house has to do with many things. If you go into my membership lounge, I'll go into more depth about, what it's like to go through the 8th house. But you've been experiencing it for a while in terms of Pluto being there since 2009, 8 and 9. So over a decade, you've had Pluto in here. Pluto actually feels relatively comfortable here in the 8th house. So it's happy as Pluto can get. And actually, Capricorn's not terrible here either. So what I think probably has happened to you over the last decade is you had some financial devastation, many of you, or some big financial changes. Some of you may have actually had the reverse of devastation, like a huge win, like a lottery win, or suddenly your business got purchased by, Microsoft or something. So some people could have had a powerful reverse of devastation, but the average person, the average Gemini, probably had to go through a slump and some fear around money. And then slowly over this last decade, you've been building a stronger foundation if you've been smart. And I think most of you are smart because you're Geminis and you're governed by Mercury. So if you've been playing your cards right here, you've been saving for retirement, learning how to save, learning how not to spend, each paycheck in its entirety. Even if you have a very small paycheck, I think most of you have been building on that though. Maybe it started small, but you can, even if it's a penny, start putting away some money. And I think a lot of you have been doing that too. The other thing that the 8th house governs has to do with, it's called a psychological house as well. And you can kind of intuit, like money is very psychological. It is so intertwined with our emotional health, and we have many fears usually around money. If we're going to have fears, a lot of them are going to be around money. And so this is also a place where our fears live. So it's where we govern our money, how we take care of our money, how we steward and shepherd our money. It's also where we're very fearful, not just about money, but about many things. This is where we're fearful about sex, intimacy, life and death. So this is like the scary dark closet of the chart. But a lot of good things can happen here too, because when we overcome our fears, when we face our fears, when we move through our fears, we're scared, but we move through whatever it is anyway, we're victorious. That's where we're starting to live the hero's journey. We're coming out of the dark cave, the dark soul of night, and we're coming out with a treasure. So this is also where you can come out stronger, way stronger than you were before, even though you have gone through some dark stuff. So that's where the action is. So some of you, I imagine, on some level, some of you are ready to take on a lot more income, or your income is growing. It could be through investment, it could be through real estate, it could be through your job, or just how you're managing your money. But a lot of you are poised to do really well financially this year and beyond, if you're playing your cards right. So I recommend in January, if you feel there's more to do to strengthen your finances, now's the time. Get to it, because you don't want the transits that are going on in January to go by without you working on this. Some of you have some very well-timed events happening, like a job change or a promotion. Things are happening for you in January that you may already know about, or big deals are coming in, or something like that, or a big sale of property, or maybe a big inheritance. So there's a lot here about money, but there's a lot here about your fears, your psychological ability, your emotional ability to face your fears, move through your fears, and despite still being scared, because people are never fully not scared unless there's something really like physically wrong with them. Even though you retained some fear, you learned how to move through it and get to the other side and to build your life the way you want, hopefully. In terms of intimacy, it's just going to depend on, the Gemini, like how old you are you in a relationship? There's nothing here about, you do have Mars in January moving through your 7th house. And you do have Venus in your 9th house. So there's kind of creating a sandwich of that 8th house. Some people could be going through some form of partnership change. So for some of you, that means, and this is more for people who are dating or married, not so much the single Gemini. For the single Gemini, I think a lot of Geminis have marriage on the brain, or engagement on the brain. It's just, it's like it's there and you can't get rid of it. So if you're single, not dating, you do have this heavy desire to get married, to couple up. And there is some opportunity here, but what I would say is, what's important is what you've been learning over the last 10 years about relationships, about yourself, because we can never fully understand someone else the way we can understand ourselves potentially. But a lot of people spend a lot of time trying not to look at themselves, trying not to understand themselves. So if you want to get into a relationship or strengthen a relationship, you still want to take the mirror and look at yourself. More than your partner, more than the past. You want to take a good hard look at yourself and be honest about your own behavior and your own expectations. So there's something about your own ability to look at yourself and move beyond fears. We have fears when we get into relationships or meet somebody, like they'll leave me, they won't like me, they're too good for me. People have, and there may be some of you who are like, I'm too good for them. In that case, take a good look at it. Are you too good for them? That would be one question. But then why? Like, what are the reasons? Is it because they're really messed up and they can't get their act together? Then perhaps you are too good for them. Perhaps you need to move on. So it's just really being honest about yourself, about the relationship, and learning from the mistakes in the past. That's what Saturn wants. Saturn's also here with Pluto. Saturn wants you to have learned about any money mistakes, and any relationship mistakes based, and also acting from fear. The mistakes you've made when you've acted from fear. Those are perhaps your worst mistakes, when you've let fear govern your behavior. Fear that you're going to be left, fear that you're going to lose money. That's when people become tyrannical or over controlling or miserly. So just think about what you've learned about yourself over the last decade, and then behave not out of fear, but out of strength of learning, that kind of university of life you just went through. Make financial decisions not from fear, but out of solid knowledge, and having moved through the fear before you make the decision. Same thing with relationships. Don't try to, like, for a relationship example would be, you're dating and you're worried that the clock's ticking, and you think, well, if we don't commit now, we'll never commit. Don't commit to someone out of fear that if you don't do it now, it'll never happen. That's a really bad way to make a commitment. So it's stuff like that. That may not be exactly your situation, but just, that's the nature of it. But I do think one of the main themes going on for you is a big job change for a majority of you. Now, some of you may be retired, but in that case, I would say there's some big changes going on with spending, or still, if you're retired, hopefully you're managing some degree of money. And also there's this idea still about public life. And when you retire, I would say this is not the year to do the, just hanging out on a beach, talking to no one, and just hanging out in the sun or hanging out in a golf course. That should not be the bulk of your year. I'm just using those as examples. Or hanging out in front of Netflix, unless you work at Netflix or you work on one of the movie sets or the TV series sets. Don't hang out just binge watching Netflix unless you're a reviewer and you get paid for that. This is a year to make a mark. It's not the kind of mark where you're striving. It's not a contest. It's not like an achievement kind of mark, but it's the kind of mark, the kind of imprint that your soul makes when it lights up and shines and you are your authentic self. That's the kind of mark you're supposed to make by being you, moving through the fear and following kind of your soul's calling. And that can look a variety of different ways, but it doesn't really look like binge watching Netflix. It doesn't look like playing golf all day, unless you're a professional golfer and you're supposed to inspire other golfers. So I see some people are here. Hi everybody who's here. Hi, Tina. Tina says, Lee, I'm at work, had a quick question. Neptune squaring our sun. Within how many degrees does it affect us? Well, with a planet like Neptune, so she's asking if an outer planet like Neptune, well, I'm going to go ahead, you didn't say outer planet, but a planet like Neptune moves very slowly. So I would say, like, if Mercury's squaring your sun, it's first of all going to be a very quick thing unless there's a retrograde. And I would say Mercury has to be much closer in degree relationship to your sun for it to be powerful. Neptune, however, I think you can feel it out to 10 degrees on either side. So it is influencing one for a while. And a square, also remember that a square relationship, this is a 90-degree angle in the 360-degree kind of grid that we place around us in the sky. When things are 90 degrees away from one another, it's called a square. And a square relationship is often portrayed as negative. It's not so much that in my mind, because I see in birth charts, I see in real life that squares can be challenging and they may put you to the test. But it could also be a time of great achievement. And often people with many squares and hard angles in their or hard aspects it's hard for me to get away from geometry when talking about this. An angle is something different in astrology. But anyway, sometimes these what are thought of as harder relationships, I see them in the charts of people who accomplish a great deal. But they do so, behind the scenes, they're not, it's not a cakewalk. They're working, they may battle some kind of thing like, I don't know, they battle some inner demons, or they battle, there are things around them that don't always feel supportive. So a square, just keep in mind, Tina, that you can use it like leverage. I think of it, if you think of it like a hard aspect, it literally has structure to it, strength, like metal, like iron. And so you can use something that hard, metal, iron, like leverage. I mean, that's how you start moving big stones around. You use a big long pole of metal. You can do a lot with that. And so it gives you a type of strength and grit to get through whatever this phase of life is bringing to you. But I would ask you to decide, especially this year, you want to decide what you're going to do with this. Like, okay, Neptune squaring my sun. What do I want to do with this? How do I want it to go? Do I want to become an alcoholic and, not see my partners clearly and get involved with, other alcoholics? Do I want to just spiral down? No, I think most people would say, no, I don't want to do that. So what do you want to do? And I'm not suggesting, I'm just giving examples. With Neptune, you can get really lost. So I would just say, what do you want to have happen? With Neptune, you can foster creativity. You can really, I think, engage with your creativity and make it something stronger. It can actually give your life more structure and maybe even make it more of a business. Neptune can govern business. It governs money in many ways. So it's a time when money can magically come in, but magically, not like you sit there binge watching Netflix, as I was saying, but you work, you're doing your thing, you're following your soul's calling, and then as though by magic, you get discovered. It's as though by magic. It can seem very mysterious how somebody got your name, how they decided to hire you or buy your products or buy your paintings or hire you to star in a movie. It can seem mysterious sometimes, like, how did that happen? That just seemed to come out of the blue. That's a Neptune event, but it never really did. It's because of who you are and how you've showed up that those things happen. So don't be fearful of a square. So just to go back to Gemini, guys, Venus is at the top of your chart. So in many ways, right now is the time to interview, put yourself forward for a job, or if you're going into a new position or going into maybe it's a educational setting to teach or to learn, you are coming across really well at this time. People tend to like you. People tend to be enamored by you. So this is a really good time to be putting yourself out there. No hiding in the background. And just know that the nodes, North Node and South Node, are involved in what's going on in January. And it really is a karmic time. It's a time to be engaged with life fully, not to be running away. It doesn't mean you can't have like a weekend off or even be on vacation. But you need to be intentional about what you're doing in January and this year. That's the most important thing to understand. But relationships, I do think for those who've been dating a while or they're married, there are some significant relationship events or changes for some of you. For some of you, it could mean divorce. But I would say if you've been dating a long time, it could show an engagement. But I think there's some internal tension. There's some tension around, there's tension between two parties. It could be, a spouse or somebody you're dating. There is a little bit of tension this month. And it may have to do with what you're doing out in the outer world, because there are so many changes. It may have to do with money. So there could be, if there is tension between two people who are close, it may have to do with money. Money's not a good reason to break up unless it's like a really severe issue, but it's not the best reason to break up or be mad. So just work it out. Mercury is in the mix. Mercury also governs your sign. So use your words, Gemini, use your words, and talk things through. You do have the ability to talk about difficult topics right now. So during this time of intensity around money and around fearful things, relationship issues, you have the gift of gab and the ability to talk about planning, the ability to think and look long term, and to communicate this. Jupiter's in your 8th house. This does typically mean that more money is going to be coming in. So it's a good start to the year. I would just say use your words and know that people do see you in a very good light right now. So it's a good time to be moving forward and putting yourself out there. All right. Take care, everyone. Happy New Year, and I'll talk to you soon.